Assess your SMB cybersecurity defenses at warp speed. My name is Yogi Schulz. Thank you to Jim Love and the MapleSEC organizing team at IT World Canada for inviting me to speak today. In this presentation, we'll discuss how to achieve a high level of assurance over the state of cybersecurity defenses at SMBs using a low-cost, low-effort process. Some of you may be skeptical, believing that low cost and high level of assurance are incompatible goals, given the complexity that many associate with cybersecurity. I hope to convince you that these goals can be reconciled and that an inaccurate perception of high cost should not cause you to neglect cybersecurity defenses. Warp speed is a reasonable term for the assessment process I want to describe for you because it really is high speed. SMBs can achieve cybersecurity assurance with modest effort. Who am I? I founded Corvell Consulting over 20 years ago. We offer information technology-related management consulting. We have executed many projects for our clients. I write columns for IT World Canada. I write for an audience of IS executives and managers. For a while, I was a CBC radio guest with an information technology theme. I've participated in many industry conferences as a presenter in the oil and gas industry, in the project management world, and the PPDM Association. Let's start by briefly outlining the topics I will cover today. Impediments to effective cybersecurity defenses. We'll discuss the usual impediments of competing priorities and lack of money that constrain SMBs. Consequences of ignoring cybersecurity. Let's remind ourselves of the significant consequences when SMBs ignore cybersecurity. Conducting a cybersecurity assessment. I'll describe a cybersecurity assessment process that's tuned to the realities of the constraints most SMBs face. CIS, Critical Security Controls. The SMB's security assessment process I want to share with you is called Critical Security Controls. CIS stands for Center for Internet Security. We'll talk a little about the value of the CIS controls because you probably have to sell the cybersecurity assessment within your SMB organization. We'll wrap up with some conclusions and recommendations that will help you in assessing your SMB security defenses at warp speed. Here are some of the more common impediments to effective cybersecurity defenses I've heard that cause IT management at SMBs to avoid taking comprehensive action on cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is expensive. We can't afford it. Cybersecurity requires licensing lots of expensive specialized software. Cybersecurity requires me to hire lots of expensive consultants to set up our program. Cybersecurity requires data aggregation software development to produce problem and risk assessment reports. My organization is too small, too low profile, and too inconsequential to attract the attention of cyber attackers. Spending money on cybersecurity defenses isn't justified. Cybersecurity operations consume too much staff time. My staff is already overloaded. I will need expensive staff to run a cybersecurity program. I can't justify the expense to my boss. My IT staff is doing well within our budget constraints. I have confidence in their work. I think we're covering the basics in our cybersecurity program. I think that's good enough. Consequences of ignoring cybersecurity. What risks am I accepting by ignoring cybersecurity or not paying enough attention? Cyber attacks include phishing attacks, data breaches, ransomware, and theft of company intellectual property, corporate espionage, and identity theft. The adverse impacts of successful cyber attacks include reputational damage among customers and suppliers, leading to loss of business, financial losses due to the cost of repairing the computing infrastructure's damage and recreating data, fines payable to regulators for violating the General Data Protection Regulation or similar regulations, market share losses when theft of intellectual property creates competitors, loss of revenue due to operational disruption. Taken together, these likely impacts create a significant risk of business bankruptcy or cessation of operations for a nonprofit. Common concerns that prevent SMBs from conducting a cybersecurity assessment. How can you reduce your cybersecurity risk without spending a lot of money and consuming lots of staff time? How can you objectively understand where your cybersecurity defenses are in good shape and where you need to pay more attention? How can you be assured you're covering your cybersecurity risks comprehensively? How can you confidently report the current state of your cybersecurity defenses to your senior management and board of directors with a high level of assurance? I want to describe a solution to these widespread concerns today. Wearing a tiny umbrella in a rainstorm won't keep you dry. Underestimating your cybersecurity risks won't protect your SMB organization. My answer to the questions on the last slide that I'm sure many of you have asked yourself is to conduct a cybersecurity assessment. That work will provide you with a comprehensive understanding at an affordable price. A cybersecurity assessment consists of these tasks. Select someone that you have confidence in to conduct a cybersecurity assessment. A senior member of your staff, perhaps you as the IT leader in a small SMB. Perhaps an outside consultant to bring in more expertise and objectivity. Use a widely adopted cybersecurity framework rather than developing the process internally. You'll benefit from the collaborative work of a large community of cybersecurity experts. Ask your staff, who are control performers, about their review of cybersecurity work. Control performers are the individuals that review the cybersecurity work that's being performed in the organization. Convene a meeting of the control performers to answer the questions in the cybersecurity framework. Document their answers to the questions. Share a summary of your conclusions with senior management and the board of directors. The summary should cause your SMB audience to be impressed that you're managing this risk on behalf of the organization. Your presentation will also be an opportunity to ask for money to remediate. Remediate the not effective controls using the budget management has provided for this work. Remediation will be an ongoing effort that will raise your cybersecurity defenses. Pushing remediation too hard, however, is often counterproductive because it raises costs and introduces more change than the organization can absorb. A widely adopted cybersecurity framework, especially among SMBs, is the CIS Critical Security Controls. It consists of these 18 elements. We don't have time today to discuss them all in detail. However, the key point is that the CIS Critical Security Controls were developed by experts in various disciplines, including security analysts, auditors, executives, and policymakers. That multidisciplinary collaboration provides us all with the assurance that nothing important has been missed in the design of this cybersecurity framework. If you download these presentation slides, you can click on the link for the document that explains the controls in detail. Underneath these 18 elements, CIS has defined 153 safeguards that together define what SMBs should be considering doing in minimizing their security risk. If 153 sounds like an intimidating number, that may be overkill. Don't panic. The CIS categorizes the 153 safeguards into 3 implementation groups. Assess and remediate the safeguards in Implementation Group 1 first. Strengthen only the cybersecurity safeguards that are relevant to your organization. So the CIS Critical Security Controls Implementation Groups. These are the 3 implementation groups together with the number of safeguards in each group. Implementation Group 1, implement essential cyber hygiene to thwart general attacks. Implementation Group 2, manage complex IT infrastructure. Implementation Group 3, secure confidential data to prevent sophisticated attacks. The value of the IGs is that they recognize the resource constraints most SMBs operate with. To reduce cybersecurity risk, CIS recommends that SMBs focus resources first on the most straightforward and cheapest controls in IG1. Only move to not effective IG2 and 3 controls once you have completed work on the IG1 safeguards. There's more information about the implementation groups at the CIS website. This slide illustrates how the various concepts I've been discussing work together. I've chosen to use malware defenses, a safeguard in CIS Control 10, as the example. This is the first of 7 safeguards defined for CIS Control 10 malware defenses. Example safeguard. Deploy and maintain anti-malware software. This business process, which should be routine safeguard, is performed by someone in the IT staff or someone in the managed IT service provider organization. Hopefully, this person updates a document that logs every time they take action to update anti-malware software. Example control. Review the anti-malware software log. Execution of the control could be a review of the log, typically performed by an IT supervisor. The outcome would be his or her initials and a date in the log. If the IT supervisor noted any deficiencies in the log, then some remediation action should be noted. Typically, the IT supervisor will have the authority to allocate resources to effect the remediation action. Example for assessment. Review a sample of the log entries. The assessment could be a review of these entries, typically performed by an auditor who is conducting the assessment. The conclusion would be either an effective or a not effective control or safeguard. In the event of a not effective conclusion, then some remediation action will be recommended by the auditor who conducted the assessment. The auditor's report containing audit findings is typically received by a manager who will have the authority to allocate resources to effect the remediation action. This model often creates various questions, such as how do we recognize the demarcation among the 3 processes? The 3 processes should be conducted by different people. Different people provide segregation of duties and independence of assessment. The 3 processes are conducted by different people because different skills and experiences are required to perform them well. The 3 processes are also conducted by 3 people to achieve objectivity. We believe that many companies already operate various controls, but that the controls are not recognized as such because they're buried as steps within the safeguard. Where does the safeguard stop and the control start? The minute the work definition introduces concepts like monitor or review or contemplates bringing in a separate person, particularly a supervisor, into the picture, the work is most likely control in nature. Where does the control stop and the assessment start? Controls are typically performed by a supervisor or a manager, while the assessment is performed by an auditor. Controls tend to be routine, frequent, comprehensive, meaning no sampling is involved. Assessments tend to be occasional, infrequent, and never comprehensive, meaning sampling is always involved. What does a cybersecurity assessment workbook look like? There is one worksheet for each of the 18 elements. First, on the left side of each row of the workbook, there is a safeguard description. Then the 4 control assessment questions follow on the right side. Each question is answered by the assessment participants by selecting the description for the current state of the SMB organization from a list of choices. For example, here's a list of the choices for control implemented. By answering the 4 questions for all 153 safeguards, any SMB can assess the state of its cybersecurity defenses to a high level of assurance. In my experience, the security assessment can be completed in 1 business day at most SMBs. That's warp speed in my view. The effort shouldn't scare anyone to the point where they ignore this work. What value do the CIS controls create if they've been implemented? The CIS community asserts that by implementing the CIS controls, an SMB can prevent the vast majority of cyber attacks, assure organizations that cybersecurity defenses are comprehensive, provide a framework for automating and managing cybersecurity defenses well into the future. Alternative approaches to conduct the assessment of CIS controls. Organizations can approach the assessment in multiple ways. First, internal staff resources can be used using the Audit Script CIS Critical Security Control Assessment Tool. The appeal of this alternative is it does not require an external expense. The internal person must have the time available, enough knowledge of cybersecurity to conduct the assessment. The external cost is $0. internal staff resources using the Corvell Enhanced CIS Controls Assessment Tool. We have enhanced the Audit Scripts Assessment Tool to provide guidance to the assessor and to track who is performing the safeguards and the controls. This is helpful to remember what happened last year and to demonstrate continuous improvement. The external cost is $250. The third alternative is internal staff resources using the Corvell Enhanced Assessment Tool plus the Corvell Orientation. Some clients like to have us provide a little orientation about best practices for assessments. External cost, $500. Next alternative is Corvell consultants using the Corvell Assessment Tool. If you require an independent external assessment, like you do for financial audits, then you can hire us to conduct the cybersecurity assessment. You may prefer to engage another consulting organization that you already have a relationship with and use their assessment process. The external cost is $10,000 or perhaps a little more, depending on the size of the SMB and the number of participants in the assessment. I hope these alternatives illustrate what I said at the beginning of my presentation about low cost. The cost to conduct the cybersecurity assessment and achieve an objective understanding of the state of the cybersecurity defenses is not scary. So, some conclusions. This process can achieve success at your SMB. Conducting a cybersecurity assessment will provide you with an irrefutable facts about the state of your cybersecurity defenses. The CIS controls are comprehensive. It's difficult to claim the CIS controls are missing safeguards or that the controls are excessive. Conducting a cybersecurity assessment requires only modest effort. There's no need to avoid this work. There are more sophisticated ways to conduct this work that have value. However, I've deliberately focused this presentation on an approach that works and doesn't cut any corners. Simplicity ensures that the work will actually be performed as opposed to ignored. There are more involved ways to conduct the cybersecurity assessment that cost more and deliver value. What I've described is tuned to the cost and staff capacity constraints that most SMBs experience. So, recommendations for the $0 alternative I described 2 slides ago. Begin by downloading and reading the 4-page summary of the CIS implementation groups. This document illustrates how CIS divides cybersecurity into various topics and provides an overview of all the safeguards in the context of the implementation group they belong to. Then download the CIS Critical Security Controls version 8 Excel workbook. Reading the detailed descriptions of the many safeguards in the worksheet Controls V8 will give you a good understanding of the scope of the controls and how they're grouped. Then, to conduct the cybersecurity assessment of your organization, download the CIS Critical Security Controls V8 assessment tool from the Audit Scripts website. This assessment tool expands on the CIS Excel workbook by providing drop-down lists of choices for assessment conclusions, a dashboard that shows the results of your assessment graphically, an assessment summary of the results for each control, more detailed instructions for conducting the cybersecurity assessment. Then, report summary conclusions to management and the board of directors. They should be impressed by how comprehensive your work is. Ask for money to remediate non-effective controls. Reduce your cybersecurity risks by remediating the not effective controls. Start by remediating not effective IG1 controls, move on to not effective IG2 and 3 controls only if you need to reduce your cybersecurity risks further. If you download the presentation, these links will lead you there in the presentation. Assess your SMB cybersecurity defenses at warp speed. You are welcome to contact me to discuss any questions you may have about the cybersecurity assessments.